Have you ever felt trapped between fear, doubt, and regret, unsure if you are still worthy of God's love? In the Gospel of John, the disciples hid behind locked doors after failing Jesus. And yet, he came back not with judgment, but with peace. What if the very place you feel most unworthy is exactly where he wants to meet you? This Sunday is not only a reflection on the resurrection, it is also Divine Mercy Sunday. It is a reminder that the risen Christ does not return to condemn, but to restore, not to reopen wounds, but to heal, and not to dwell on our failures, but to call us into a new life rooted in his infinite mercy. In the Gospel of John, we are brought into a room filled with fear. The disciples are hiding behind locked doors, and their fear is not without reason. The same authorities who condemned Jesus could now be looking for them, perhaps suspecting that they had taken his body or somehow responsible for what had happened. Outside of fear, they are also carrying grief from the loss of their master, confusion about what they had witnessed, and a quiet but heavy shame for abandoning him in his suffering. Their hearts are weighed down not only by what has happened to Jesus, but by what they themselves have done. And yet, into that mixture of fear, grief, and shame, something new begins to emerge. First, the tomb is empty. The body of Jesus is gone. Is Jesus alive? Within them, fear wrestles with hope, and uncertainty is now pierced by the possibility of his resurrection. It is precisely into this moment that Jesus comes. The doors are locked, the room is sealed, and yet Jesus appears among them. This reveals something profound, that there is no barrier, no wall, no depth of fear or shame that can prevent Christ from reaching us and entering our hearts. What is closed to the world is not closed to him. Even the most guarded places within us, where we hide our failures, our doubts, and our fears, remain open to the presence of the risen Christ. And his first words are not words of correction or accusation, but of peace. Peace be with you. That is what he said. This peace is not simply a greeting, it is a declaration of his divine mercy. The risen Christ stands before those who abandoned him, not to remind them of their failure, but to offer them forgiveness. At this moment, mercy is not just spoken, it is given. It is the fulfillment of everything accomplished through his passion, where every sin, every weakness, and every failure is met with the infinite love of God. Their past does not define them anymore. God's love does. To make this even more real, Jesus shows them his hands and his side. The wounds are still there. The marks of suffering have not been erased, but the disciples have been transformed. In this, we see a powerful truth. The resurrection does not remove the wounds of life, but heals them. These wounds that were once a sign of defeat for them now become a sign of victory. What was once a reminder of their shame becomes a testimony of love. These wounds are not only proof that he is alive, they are signs of forgiveness and a reconciliation. They reveal a love that was willing to suffer, to endure, and to give everything, so that we might be restored. In showing them his wounds, Jesus not only eases their fear, he invites them to trust in the depth of his mercy. Then something even more astonishing happens. Jesus does not simply comfort them, he commissions them. Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I send you. Despite their fear, despite their failure, and despite everything they had done or failed to do, He entrusts them with His mission. He breathes on them and gives them the Holy Spirit, echoing the very breath of God in creation. This is a moment of new creation, just as God once breathed life into humanity. Christ now breathes new spiritual life into His disciples, forming them into the foundation of His church. And with this gift comes a mission. Whose sins you forgive are forgiven them. Having received the Holy Spirit, they are now called to become instruments of that same mercy to the world. Jesus not only forgives them, He trusts them enough to carry His message to others. This reveals something essential. They are not chosen because they are perfect, but because they are loved. And through the power of the Holy Spirit, they are capable of becoming what they have been called to be. And this speaks directly to us. Even today, many of us live behind our own locked doors. We fear rejection, judgment, or isolation if we live our faith openly. We may feel unworthy because of our past, unsure because of our lack of knowledge, or hesitant because we do not feel a strong sense of conviction. In a world that often promotes confusion, normalizes sin, and distances itself from the truth, it can feel easier to remain hidden than to stand as a witness to Christ. But this gospel reminds us that Jesus does not wait for us to be ready or perfect before He enters our lives. He comes to us as we are, speaks peace into our fears, and offers forgiveness in the places we feel most broken. And just as He gave the Holy Spirit to the disciples, He gives us the same Spirit to guide, strengthen, and sustain us in living out our faith. God's love and mercy do not end with us. With the help of the Holy Spirit, we are also called to forgive as we have been forgiven, to show compassion where it is difficult, and to bring reconciliation into a world that desperately needs it. This brings us to Thomas the Apostle. Thomas was not present when Jesus first appeared, and when he hears the testimony of the others, he struggles to believe. But his doubt is not a rejection, it is a longing for truth. He wants to see, to understand, to be certain. And how does Jesus respond? Jesus goes back to the apostles, now Thomas being present. Jesus meets Thomas exactly where he is, inviting him to touch his wounds and to move from doubt into faith. There is no rejection here, only invitation. In this, we see that doubt, when it is honest, does not separate us from Christ. It can actually draw us closer to Him. Thomas's journey shows us that questioning can be part of faith, as long as it leads us to seek Christ more deeply. In fact, Thomas's experience reflects the journey of all the disciples. They too struggled to believe. They too remained in hiding. When Jesus says, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe," He is not only speaking to Thomas, but to all future believers, including us. We live in a world that often demands proof, where belief is conditioned on what can be seen and verified. But faith calls us beyond that. It calls us to trust the Father not only when He feels near, but also when He feels distant. It calls us when life feels uncertain, when suffering is real, and when the world seems to move further away from truth and goodness. This is the essence of the Provident God. To believe in those moments is not easy, but it is precisely there that faith becomes real. And so the gospel leaves us with both a promise and a challenge. That Jesus is truly the Messiah, the Son of God, and that through believing, we may have life in his name. The question is not whether Jesus can reach us. The question now is whether we are willing to receive him, step out from behind our locked doors, and become instruments of his love and mercy for others.